why today. I have a special guest, and that is my husband. He's here with me today to talk about 7 things that have kept us married for so long.
We have just been
7. We've been together for over 40 years. Over 40? Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Over 40 years. We haven't been married 40 years, but we have had a relationship for 40 years. And so a lot of people tell us that they are amazed because we look so young and youthful. No, not because we look so young and youthful. They're amazed that we're still together because so few people are. So I thought it would be cool to do a little what it takes to keep your relationship going for so long. Because I know that people today are asking questions like that. What does it take to keep a relationship going for so long? So we have 7 things, and we are going to do a second video with 7 more things that have kept our relationship going. And they're really in no particular order. They're just kind of, we sat down one day and we started brainstorming.
Yep.
Came up with a bunch of things that we think are important in our relationship and important in other relationships that we see that are long-standing. So we thought we'd share those. We are not therapists. In fact, we've been to therapy a few times. And as my family likes to say, we did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. If you know that joke, then you're probably our age.
Yeah, we don't have any special authority
to
dictate or tell people how their own relationship should be or could be. And everyone has different backgrounds, different family histories, different perspectives, and different lifestyle habits, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just one perspective from just one couple.
Yeah. So let's get started. Okay. First one is, and this is kind of apropos of a trip we just took. It is right after the new year, and we just went to visit all of Robert's family down in Texas. And so one of the things that we say that couples need to do is be on the same page about family and money. Those are 2 big things that can cause issues in your relationship, right?
Yeah.
We had decided before we went that whatever drama came up, we were just going to let it slide off our back like a duck.
Of course, she's better at it than I am because...
Well, they're not my family.
Yeah.
So, it's much harder when you're in the middle of it than if you're the spouse.
Yeah.
And
because I'm the oldest of my siblings, I have a tendency to... for my family. Credit to them. They make a lot of accommodations for me, or they just put up with my bullshit.
Or both.
Or both. It's also a lot of fun.
Yeah. We did have a lot of fun while we were there. I think we were able to do that because we knew going in what our attitude was. Okay. Next one is, and we don't have to do this so much anymore, but those of you that have kids at home, you need to nurture your relationship outside of the kids, because it gets to be where every conversation you're having is about the kids. Mm-hmm. What are the kids doing? What do you need to do for the kids? Do the kids have homework? Do the kids have sports? Do the kids have an activity? And it gets to be where you're not talking about each other and your relationship anymore. So you have to do something about that.
Yeah, and I think appropriately, your children carry a great amount of gravity as far as your mindset, what you're thinking, your life management, their development, their education. Everything can consume and kind of evolve and dominate the entire relationship. And you definitely have to give plenty of space as a couple and nurture that. I think one of the things that has helped our relationship is to have, a lot of different topics to have conversations about. For us, and I'm only speaking for us, it involves obviously kind of a mishmash between what I'm interested in and what Kim's interested in, and then where they cross over. Even though we may not necessarily be 100% on board with something, we share them.
Right. So that's a good segue to say the next one, and that is you need to learn how to communicate with each other. And this is of primary importance. The earlier you learn how to do this, the more stable your relationship will be. I think it took us years to learn how to really communicate properly. So he knows this, but a story that I have is that when we were early married, so my parents split up when I was about 8. So I did not come from a two-parent home. He did come from a two-parent home. His parents were married until the day his dad passed away. But every time we would fight early in marriage, I would mentally divide up all our possessions. So I just knew that it was going to end in divorce because that's the way my parents had ended up. I had very few examples of long-term relationships to follow. And so I just mentally knew that that's what was going to happen. And part of that was because when we fought, I would shut down. I would not communicate. And
I'm ready to mix it up.
Yeah. Yeah, two different argument styles. I am the shutdown and he's the yell. And it worked in our families of origin. Well, I guess it didn't work in my family of origin because it didn't stay together. But at any rate, we had to get past those styles into a communication style.
Well, and also it's it's a lot more nuanced than that. I come from a family where, it is A-okay to engage in some differences of opinion and pushback and just keeping it out in the open and having that conversation, being okay with argumentation, being okay with debate, being okay with trying to persuade someone.
And still loving them.
About your
and it's
own,
okay.
about your own point of view. In other words, disagreement and arguing for your point or arguing against someone else's point, we're not grounds, we're not a threshold for breaking off, a relationship or stonewalling or whatever the case may be. And so from my own perspective, from my family's perspective, if you have a difference, then in many occasions, it's go time. You state your case and you get after it. You're going to do everything that you can to explain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that didn't work for us because we were operating on different strategies, different kind of embedded rules of engagement, and they were not exactly aligned in any way.
Right. So along with that, the next one is pick someone that challenges you in good ways, because you will pick someone subconsciously that challenges you anyway. So you want to have someone challenge you to be a better human being. You definitely, I tell people, when people ask why I chose him, it's because I feel like I learned something from him every day. He's incredibly intelligent, and I love that about him. I love his brain.
Hey, buyer beware.
Anyway, so he challenges me intellectually, which I love. I think that's a fabulous thing. So you need to pick someone who does challenge you in good ways.
Yeah, and I can't really put my finger on one thing. The way Kim challenges me is she has a very almost evil genius kind of intelligence that I recognized right off the bat. I think way back when we were young, it kind of manifested itself. I knew right away, she could handle herself with areas of thinking. We met as students, and she was way sharper than I was, and also understood how to navigate the management of all the work that we had to do in college. In fact, I would go so far as to say that she already knew how to just getting things done. I knew that Kim definitely had that in spades. And so the idea of finding or choosing someone who challenges you in areas where you're going to have to maybe do some uncomfortable things to level up, either with thinking or life habits or skills or grit, whatever you want to call it. Find someone who is not just going to allow you to do the things that kind of let yourself off the hook.
Right.
You got to find someone who's going to challenge you and to help you grow in the different ways that you have the ability to grow.
Yeah. So the next one kind of plays off of that one, where you want someone to challenge you. You also cannot definitely choose a partner based on just looks or just money. This is a recipe for disaster. I can tell you a few stories about this. One story I have is a good friend she feels very, very self-conscious about her legs. And she's happily married, but she still is very self-conscious about her legs. She and her husband were at a resort in Mexico, and she was wearing a bathing suit. And she overheard a young man, tell the woman that he was with, "If you ever look like that, I'm going to leave you." Now, how does that sound for a supportive partner? If you want a partner for life, it needs to be based on something more than looks or money. You need to be friends, and ideally best friends.
Yeah, and I think that it's perfectly okay if health and fitness is your thing, and you're qualifying people on the health and fitness side, fine. But I think, especially in our country, and especially with proliferation of social media, the superficial side of the world where images are basically used to exploit and market everything. If you're just going to qualify your partners based upon that image and you don't know anything about how they think, what their life habits are, what they expect of themselves, what their levels of accountability are, how they handle money, how they handle hardships, whether or not they even are ethical in any way, shape, or form. If you just focus on looks, or on the other side of things, just money, I think that it's going to be tough going. Now, I will say this: money is very, very important, and management of finances, financial management, strategy, accountability, planning. I mean, that's all very important. What I'm really talking about are those, I think, and maybe what Kim's talking about, are those elements that you see in entertainment and media, fame and fortune. Fame, fortune, looks.
Individuals who are only out. I mean, my sister has a friend who will not even consider dating anyone who's not a millionaire, which to me is kind of ridiculous. I mean, there are a lot of good people out there who don't, qualify as millionaires.
Well, there are a lot of good millionaires.
Yes, I'm not saying there aren't good millionaires.
I think the point. I think the point being,
it can't be just based on money.
Yeah.
Or just based on looks.
Yeah, that's so weak. But
so the next one is that you have to operate as a team. And when we say this, it kind of sounds trite. We went to a wedding last week, and one of the things that the officiant said, which I thought was quite apropos, was when you're on a team, you're not giving 50%, you're giving 100%. So I have to give 100%, he has to give 100%, and that makes it worse. Not worse. That makes it worse.
Is that a Freudian slip?
You have to put the other person first. You have to be willing to accept help from the other person, or you're not on a team. And something that Robert brought up today, which I thought was really good, is that your partner has to believe in you. Like, for example, this YouTube channel. He believes in me. He is supportive of this YouTube channel. Does he participate in it all the time? No. He agreed to do this one with me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But you have to believe in what your partner is trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a recent insight that I've had. I mean, I'm sure I've had this insight in different ways over the years, but I really am kind of keen on it right now. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because I went back to my hometown,
Yeah.
and
Probably.
which is a mixture of nostalgia and revulsion. Like you remember all the good things, and you also remember all the ridiculous things that went on. But one of the things that I remember is there were only really maybe two or three people who were explicit about telling me, I really believe in who you are and what you're doing. And more people should really know that. And certainly they should know that from a potential partner. I think if your partner really is not honest about their support and belief in what your different life projects are, you want them to be on board with that, and you want them to be on board and support the values that you have. Now, we're not here to tell you what your values should be. That's the last thing that we're here to tell you. We have our own values. I mean, I think for a good relationship, you got to have someone in your corner and someone who has your back. And, to be perfectly frank, we haven't always demonstrated that. I think we had to learn this the hard way. Your relationship goes through many different changes, and some of them are minor changes, and some of them are major changes,
Yeah.
and in some cases even potentially catastrophic. And we've experienced it all. We're just sort of sharing what has worked for us, and the idea of kind of having a spirit of service. I don't really like that term, but it's kind of what I mean. So whether it's coming home and realizing, a few things have to get done, and it's not a matter of I'm not looking at some list and saying, well, what did she do over here? What did I do over here?
Don't keep score.
I look at some stuff that has to get done, and I just get it done.
Yeah.
If I get it done, even if I did it the day before, if I get it done, we'll have an opportunity to do something in some other area of our life. So, but the bottom line being, you got to have someone, you want to have someone who believes in you.
Yeah. So, the final tip that we have for keeping a long-standing relationship is that people change. And people change in ways that you expect and you don't expect, and your marriage is going to change. I remember years ago, and I know I told you this when it happened, but I don't know if you remember. I went to a conference for school with, I don't know, 3 or 4 other teachers up in the mountains. And one of the other teachers and I drove back together, and she was young, probably late 20s, newly married. And we started talking about marriage, and she said to me, I just can't imagine ever feeling differently about my husband. And I chuckled and said, well, life changes. I mean, think about how you viewed your parents when you were a child versus how you view your parents now. People change, you change, and your marriage, the world changes, and your marriage has to change. Your marriage has to change. Something that my brother and his wife have always said, and they've been married 60 years now, I believe 60 years. They're both in their 80s, which they're like a model for us to follow. Different marriages. And so have we. I mean, we have had at least 2. I mean, maybe more than that. There's really not a defining...
Yeah. And we don't mean like we've literally had marriage ceremonies.
No.
There are phases in your relationship, and there are life happenings, family happenings, where, the coordinates or the structure of your marriage changes in some ways. And usually they're associated with very challenging times, very challenging episodes in your marriage. And sometimes you learn a lot about your own foibles, about your own areas of weakness or your lack of development in certain areas, either psychological development, emotional development. intellectual development, whatever areas you've been stunted in that area and you haven't grown in that area. And these different boundaries in your marriage, time boundaries in your marriage, are those boundaries where you learn different things about yourself. And then, and then your marriage is, the quality of your communication, how you relate to one another, it does change.
Yeah.
I personally think things get better. You get more clarity. You understand the other person. And I also think that you have a greater capacity to support your partner whenever these different episodes happen, given that you grow from them, given that you learn from them, given that you are able to work things out. And obviously, again, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but we're not here to tell you, from A to Z what it takes to have a 40-year marriage. And by the way,
we haven't been married 40 years.
Well, that's right. But 40-year relationship. And by the way, it's not a matter of years, quite frankly. I want to sort of point that out, that the quality of one's marriage doesn't have anything to do with time.
Oh, yeah. There are people who've been together forever that are miserable.
You could be married in 70 years and hate each other's guts, but what's the point of that? So
it makes for a very sad life.
I don't really think of it in terms of years, but if you happen to be married or if you happen to be in a relationship, for 10 years, 20, 40, whatever it is, and you're growing and you're developing in ways where you're continually supporting one another, then, as best we can tell, that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. So that's just 7 things that we think are important to a positive, healthy, successful relationship from our point of view, obviously. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. My mom used to always say, opinions are like a-holes. Everyone has one. So there's 2 right here.
And on that note, why not end?
And on that note, thanks for stopping by.